Well, you're welcome back. And of course, we've got quite a massive show coming your way. So much to talk about. We're going to do a review of 2018, touch on all of those big events that became landmarks along the calendar for 2018. And I've got the best team possible to help me do that. Let's say good morning to Zakaria Tanko. He's a lawyer and a journalist, a lecturer at Ghana Institute of Journalism. He's a member of Corruption Watch, and this morning he's our guest. Also with us, and I'm so excited she's able to join us. She is currently the board chair at the Office of Special Prosecutor. But before all of that, she was and is at the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning.
So nice to see you. Thank you for making the time. We'll also be connecting via Skype with Dr. Kobe Mensah, who is still out of coverage area, except for Skype, of course, and he'll be sharing his thoughts with us. But, you know, I've been asking everybody generally how the year has been, and not in terms of how it's been for Ghana and, you know, the things that have happened, but personally, for your own, you know, journey through the year, you know, your own role that you've been playing in personal and national events. How has 2018 unfolded for you, Linda?
Thank you very much, Kojo. That's a very big question. It's because it's been stressful for me. Very, very stressful, very difficult. 2018, you were not kind at all.
Oh.
So much to do, and yet so little results that we got. So for me, it has been a difficult year. We are hoping 2019 will be better in all aspects of life, from religious to family to work, and for Ghana as a whole, we hope 2019 will be a better year.
Do you feel the same? You know, so much to do, so little results?
Well, I think interestingly, 2018 seemed to be a roller coaster sort of year. There was a lot to do, and it is as if the time was just not sufficient. You were just trying to make some time, and with all that, and the tragedy is that when you put in those efforts and you don't see the commensurate sort of results, it can be disappointing. But I always see that as one of those challenges. So for me, you know what, when I relocated to Ghana, I gave myself I'll give myself about 5 years to see whether I'm going to run back. And then 2018 was when I realized that, okay, I really made a good decision by coming back. So it had been a very, very good year, because what I want to do, I have seen some of those things come into life. Of course, there have been challenges, but that is something that we would learn from and then look at doing things better in 2019.
Now, in terms of national events, I mean, the year, it kicked off with a bit of a whimper. There weren't many things happening in January, except that everybody was feeling the pinch of the longest month of the year. But then things started happening. We first heard the story of this suggestion that the military, the US military, had an agreement with the government of Ghana, and then other things started to unfold from there. Perhaps that's a good place to start, you know, in assessing how government has communicated with the people of Ghana. I'm particularly asking this because of you, Zakaria, and you know, the unique role that you play. How would you assess government's communication with the people of Ghana throughout some of the big events that occurred? Perhaps starting with
you hit the nail right in the head. Almost all the problems that government has had with some of its policies that it wants to implement, which eventually had turned out to be that people probably might be too suspicious. It's because of the ineffectiveness of government's communication. I think it is something that we have had a problem with for some time. Previous governments have tried to find other ways of doing things, but I think that the central point keeps getting missed, which is communication is a two-way thing, and there's issues about honesty, transparency, and openness in communications, and the who and when and what you are communicating are all very crucial. So if you look at this issue you talked about the US matter, clearly if you look at the antecedents, the previous government had its own share of those sort of situations. So one would have expected that the government will learn from some of the challenges that the previous government had with regards to how it communicated this. But it didn't. And some of these things, if government had been very proactive on some of these things, when the opposition wouldn't have framed and set the agenda in terms of how the narrative should be conducted. So I think communication is a problem, not only with government, but with almost all our institutions. And I think we need to start looking at communication as a two-way flow. And that if we don't make it a two-way flow, and if we are not open and transparent in it, you create a lot of noise and you have avoidable pitfalls along the way. And if you do that, then you spend much energy, a lot of time, a lot of resources trying to just reverse something that you shouldn't really have been there at all. So I think that communication still is something we need to look at. And if you look at, apart from those issues going forward, I mean, let's just talk about just the recent issue that we had when the president met the press. There were communication gaps there. I mean, this issue about the regions, the creation of regions, you realize that there were communication gaps. But sometimes it's about just trying to decentralize the communication wings. I think a lot of the times when we say this person is the communications director, the communications manager, it looks like almost everything is centered around them. But the who they are and the what they would be communicating at any particular point in time requires that sometimes you decentralize it a little bit so that whoever is communicating it can communicate it in an effective and efficient way. And I think we need to look at those strategies very carefully. But frankly, governance now, especially in this day and age of information being almost all over the place, people have now become citizen journalists. They would fish for the information anyway. And if you don't give it to them, they would put it out there, and they would put it out there in a way that you don't want them to put it. And you would come running and trying to, and you will be treated with suspicion. I think it's something we need to look at going into 2019, because 2019 is going to be a different year. Remember, the elections will be staring us in the face. Yeah. And a lot of some of this, you know, propaganda, this mischief would be thrown out there. And therefore, the government has to really up its game and be in control and be proactive and be honest and sincere with Ghanaians when it comes to its policies and programs.
Now, Linda, I mean, still on the issue of communication, and I guess we can zero in on a few of the particular events that occurred. You know, there was this interesting accusation that people leveled against the government, that they often communicated over the heads of Ghanaians and rather were addressing their comments to the opposition. So even with the military base, when the media broke the story, there was nothing. When the opposition jumped on the bandwagon, the president addressed the nation. When the city was suffering, and you know, Ghanaians were talking about it, we heard nothing until John Mahama said something. Then all of a sudden, Dr. Baumia responded to it with the Ghana Post GPS. I think that was probably last year. But you know, there are several other examples of you know, when the regions were to be created. Same thing. You know, people were asking questions, raising issues. When the cathedral matter came up, you know, it always seems that government is only interested in addressing an issue after the minority, you know, have decided to talk about it, but never to address it to the people of Ghana. I wonder whether you observed examples of that, whether you think that is a fair accusation leveled at government?
Thank you very much, Koji. You see, sometimes when you see change or you have a change in government, I've stopped thinking of expecting change, but just changing personalities. I'm beginning to think of government officials and politicians are all the same. And these are not things that we just say. But then because you don't feel the change, the things that happened in the past keep on happening in the present. And so you are wondering where or at which point did government learn from previous government's mistakes in terms of communication. For instance, when it comes to accountability, we are supposed to have a two-way affair. Either you tell me or I demand for it. And I've realized that all governments, I might not be able to remember the examples. You are actually good at that because that's your job. But then all governments have always behaved the same way, that they only come out of forth with information only when Somebody has triggered it, and most of the times it's not coming from government. So then we put out the mischief, or we get the half facts and put it out. They come to do the correction, and it's always a disaster. I think it would be very good if government officials or government communication team, or whatever they call them, would be ready and willing to provide the information we need. Ghana has signed on to so many things that actually ensures, it requires of us to be very transparent in everything that we do. Open government partnership, for instance. Yeah. We are signatories, we have signed on, but we don't even have a right to information law. So you always be referred to go to Constitution, Article 21, if you want to get information. And now the new thing is about telling us to go to the district assemblies, and that there is a provision in the act that says that you can get information if you want it, please. Before I demand for it, provide. That's how come we have somebody we are paying, a ministry we are taking care of. And so you wonder, for me, I don't expect anything, even the elections that are upcoming, whoever wins. What we would have loved to see change, you don't see it. Maybe because its governance is broad and big, you cannot be able to measure the smallest bit of it. But at the end of the day, you want to see some transformation, general transformation in terms of how government communicates with the people, in terms of how we can get access to information. When you demand for what time, all those things do not happen. The only thing that changes is the personalities. We don't have this president again. We have now this president. We have this ministry, now this minister, and nothing changes.
Parties,
and it's
parties.
It's very worrying for me. So the looking for information yourself, getting it wrong, whether you don't even know whether it's wrong or right, because now you have not been provided. So the ones the journalists put out there, government to say it's wrong. The government comes to correct it. The opposition will do. Then it's just everything. And we have state institutions that can actually provide information on every subject matter. When it gets to inflation figures, we have a statistical service should be able to provide that one. But you see, politicians are now giving us the fact. I think, for me, I'm a bit worried and a bit disappointed that governments come in and go, but we don't feel the change or the transformation they want to bring. But for the personalities changing, nothing else changes.
Wow. Is that the same sort of lack of expectation you have for 2019? Do you think this will continue?
I am not expecting much to change than to feel the impact of the wrongs or the bad things or the lack of effectiveness and efficiency of 2018, because it's going to roll over. The banking sector issue will just not disappear. Some of us were expecting some major things to have happened by now. But we are still waiting for the receivers to finish their work, for the criminal charges, if any, to start. And we are not seeing those things happening. Now we have very bold people like Mezgo disappearing, and people, whatever, discussing so many things. Yesterday I was so angry on WhatsApp, discussing something with my old schoolmates. I'm like, there's something also called buyer beware. I'm not saying government or states should be held accountable for this disaster, but at the end of the day, we should sometimes also be a bit careful in the way and manner we actually put out or engage in some kind of investment that we know it's not going to yield the kind of result. I know people are hurt, people are crying, people didn't know. But at the end of the day, he's gone. And what would the state institutions help us be able to do for us? So the things are going to roll over. And the only new thing that is going to come up for me will be preparations towards the next 2020 elections. And as it happens in some countries, they have only 2 weeks, in Denmark, for instance, to do campaigning. Here we have the whole 4 years to do campaigning. And it's so sad. Even in Togo, is it Benin or something? They also have only just 3 weeks.
Have a period,
So we don't have any specified period. And it should be elections from January, elections. And at the end of the day, new president, old president, nothing changes.
Wow. Now, since you brought it up, I think we can spend some time on it, but I think you wanted to add something.
What I just on the point of whether we're going to see any changes in 2019 in terms of the way governance is conducted, I don't expect any changes. What I expect is to see Ghanaians getting a bit more angry and the media really taking up that responsibility, because as you rightly pointed out, it looks like the politician would continue to go along those lines. We have to now start changing the way we engage with the politicians, and the media, being our eyes and ears, would have to give us that impetus. And I think that is where I expect to see changes, so that we now have to let the politician know that we know you are almost going to do the same thing, but we are not going to allow you to do that anymore. We know what you are up to. Now we are also going to take our fate into our own hands, and we're going to push and push and push until you stop.
Do you think they'll pass the RTI bill?
Well, the impression that they're giving now, it's like as if they're going to do Ghanaians a favor. And that is a tragedy. You know, when you see members of parliament whose responsibility, whose duty is to legislate, saying that nobody should give them pressure. Who is that nobody? The very people who sent you there? You know, this is a tragedy where our representatives don't realize that they are there because of us. It's just because of the way our system operates, so they don't conduct any meaningful and effective surgery. So you would be in a constituency and you wouldn't even have seen your MP for throughout the 4-year period. Otherwise, the MPs are supposed to come to us and allow us to feed into what goes on there. But look at the attitude. But I'm saying that I think when it comes to the RTI bill, gradually, the narrative is changing, and we are gradually making people aware that it's not about journalists. It's about art. It's something that we require. This whole fanciful excuse that, oh, it is in the local government thing. Everybody knows that. But the thing is the mechanism. When I go to the local government and I trigger that provision there and say, give me information, and then he or she refuses to give me that information, what do I do? What is the timeline that I can use to judge and say, well, the time it's taking you to give me that information is unreasonable? Those are the things that we're talking about. But you see, the politician knows that. But they're trying to play on the emotions and the ignorance of people. And that's why I'm saying that we have to push them. And I think that it goes to the stage where now they are feeling the heat, it's becoming very embarrassing, and they would pass it, not necessarily because they want to do it, but because it's just the die is cast, if you like.
So you think it will get passed?
I think they'll pass it.
Yes?
I think they'll pass it.
Linda?
But they'll pass it reluctantly and be so angry. Angry, but we don't care. So long as it's passed, it's passed.
Linda, will you put your salary on it?
Oh, yes.
You
I
bet
think I'm
that
the
it will
only
get passed.
person in the RTI coalition that still have hope that the government will pass the RTI law. Because we've been given a new deadline by February ending, we should have an RTI law in Ghana.
This is the latest of many deadlines.
Many deadlines. So then other people are not so hopeful. They always think government will disappoint us. But you know, it was an election promise. That's always been an election promise. And we are going into another election. So as you rightly said, they will pass it. I'm very confident by February end, and we should have an RTI law, but very reluctantly, and that's quite unfortunate. Whether you pass it or not, we want a law. Whether you do it reluctantly or not, we want a law. So once you pass it, we actually embrace it. Making reference to the District Assembly law and the fact that you can demand for information, just as broad as what the Constitution says. So I just want the speakers of, not speakers of, members of Parliament who go around making that kind of statement to stop. Seriously, it's actually a bit offensive to hear them say that, as if we don't know the laws of this land. We know it is there. But at the end of the day, it is just as broad as what there's no mechanism in place for you to demand for the information. So we need the law to be able to do that. And so February ending, we are hoping and waiting and we happily we will jubilate if the law is passed. In the current state, actually, it's good. So we are actually not going to make more demands about changes. You see, they are what provision 86 or something. They are going through.
Is the presidency still an exception?
No.
Okay, that has been fixed.
Yes, it has been fixed because you realize it's a very big office. So then almost everybody will say, I'm preparing it for the president, so I cannot give it to you. So I think that has been modified a bit. I don't know the right test, the exact test, but I think it has been modified. And so we should be hoping that we will have an RTI law because we are going into another election and it will once again be an election campaign if they don't pass it.
You see, this is the unfortunate thing that the period all the governments have done to the RTI. Look at the number of years it has been in the pipeline. Now, in almost all jurisdictions, when you pass the RTI, there would be issues. And as you go along, you'll be fine-tuning them. We should have been fine-tuning this RTI bill to a stage where it is not going to be perfect, but it would be reasonable. But look at where we are starting now. And we will start now, and there are so many, because what they did was that they had distracted everybody from arguing over things that we shouldn't. We spend so much energy and time saying, pass it, when we should have been looking at how do we make it better, because as we start practicing it, you realize that, oh, some of these things that we didn't anticipate is causing problems, so let's look at amending it. Look at what they've done. But it's better late than never.
Right. So Linda, we are betting, you and I, that end of February, they will pass it. Yes. So if they don't pass it by end of February, I take your salary for that month.
It's not much, though.
I'll still take it.
Me, I'm not betting on the February, but I know they'll pass it before the end of the year. But the February, I'm not too, I'm not too convinced on the February. Because I don't know what the basis of coming out with that date. I think they just wanted to give us some dates just to push it back. But I know they will pass it because of the election staring us in the face, and the president has to go back, because that is one of the things that almost everybody, the media, would be hammering on. And the opposition would capitalize on that, although they are also guilty of that. But they would capitalize on that. So I know they will pass it. But as for the February, I would be glad, and maybe I will call you and give you dinner if they pass it.
I will take that. I will take that action as well. Wonderful. All right. Now let's talk a bit about our pockets, the economy, and how it all went in 2018. The city took a beating. I mean, double slaps left and right. You know, and we all felt it. But not just that. You know. Jobs, the creation of jobs was another thing that the government was under a lot of pressure for. You know, getting to the end of the year, the NABCO came up, and government, waved that flag as high as they could as an achievement in job creation. But you both walk in some circles in Ghana where people share their thoughts. How do you think the government did in 2018 managing our economy? I'll start with you, Zachariah. And I mean, talk to me personally.
Let's start from what the politician would do. You know, when they are in opposition and the IMF says things are good, they say no. When you're in government and IMF says this, you say yeah. So the IMF came and told us that everything is beautiful. Ghana, it's doing well, and all those things. And the government wants to use that as a yardstick. They say, forget about the cries of people who are saying we're not feeling it in our pocket. It's not reflecting in the way things are happening to us. Government says, no, but look, IMF says this, IMF says that. Although the same IMF are the ones who have been singing this tune, and yet we know that eventually the same IMF will come and say there are problems. Now, the reality of the situation is that, and it happens almost all over the world, where the textbook, the theories would be saying one thing, but people are not feeling it. And politics is all about trying to make people, feel that you are impacting on their lives. So it doesn't matter what the statistics says. If people are not feeling it, they would hurt you, and they would hurt you in a way that they can. And the only way they can do that is to, they can't do that immediately. They have to wait until elections, maybe. But in the meantime, they will talk. And when you talk to people, they are always saying it, that, listen, we don't see what is happening. We don't have money. Issues about employment. We still have unemployment situations. People are trying to alleviate their poverty situation. It's not like people are lazy, as some people are saying, which is also very offensive. The least you can do is to insult people and say they are very lazy. I'm telling you, the sort of things people are doing to just survive. It's unbelievable. So people are trying to do everything they can to alleviate their poverty, but it's not happening. It doesn't mean that government is not doing something. Yes, government is doing something, but is it enough? Is it translating into the daily activities of people's life? Certainly not. Does that mean that we have to throw our hands in despair? Certainly not. But I think this is the problem. See, no government can come and eradicate poverty totally. No government can come and provide employment to everybody. It's just about being honest. Let's having a very honest type of politics in our system, where, yes, when you are in opposition, you have to acknowledge what can be done and what cannot be done. When you come to government, the same thing will be done to you. But these two political parties have been playing this Palongo thing for quite a long time. So MPP came out with a number of interventions, and undoubtedly, it has given employment to some people. You could argue that the amounts that people are earning is very, 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 very minimal, but at least it's giving some people. But some people too haven't got that job. So if you talk to that person, he says, well, I'm not seeing that. But it doesn't mean that nothing has happened. So it is about admitting that when you go out there and you are campaigning and you are trying to let people give you that mandate that you are so desperate for, I'm talking about both politicians, you need to measure it. You need to manage people's expectations. Because if you don't do that, and you think, oh, it's just the ends that would justify the means, people give you that mandate and you come in there and you know, it's not like people keep saying that, oh, as soon as they find themselves in government, oh, we didn't know what we are going to, they know what they are going to see there. But they just tell people things. And when you do that, it's like you are deceiving people. And nobody wants to be deceived. And when people realize that, oh, okay, is that it? It's about deception, then people get angry. So they don't even want to acknowledge the good things that you have done. But clearly, all governments, when they come, they do something good. But is it sufficient? It is not sufficient because our problems, if you look at when they started and how it has been compounded and how corruption is adding to it day in, day out, and we are partly to be blamed. It's not something you can do overnight. But I think we need to start introducing honest, open politics into the way we do things. Acknowledge what you have been able to do, acknowledge what you haven't been able to do, and let people know the reality on the ground, and then people would start appreciating it. But if you don't do that, you put yourself in a very, very difficult situation, and people will continue to criticize you and continue to judge you based on what you promised them, whether it was realistic or not. Kojo, Madam, sometimes when we're listening to the politicians, that you don't even give it a second thought. This is a very fanciful, annoying propaganda. But there are some people who can read in between the lines. So for them, they go to sleep hoping and praying that, oh, this thing this man said, this thing this politician said, when he comes, then he comes and then he goes home and his wife continues reminding him, or the husband continues to remind the wife that, you're still in that same problem.
Linda,
you see, I think in commercial law, there's something we call buyer beware, and seller beware. Okay, so then voter beware, because the promises that come during the election time, if you have been in this country for a number of years, you should know, I won't say they cannot be fulfilled, but then most of them cannot be fulfilled. So you don't actually place your hopes on that there's going to be some drastic change when new governments come with all sort of promises. I was asking myself, why wouldn't I want to be a politician? I said, if I'm in any other jurisdiction, I would want to be, but certainly not here. If you're in the UK, you would be, because when you promise you're not able to deliver, like Cameroon, you go.
Yeah.
Theresa May is wondering whether she's staying. I've not followed the news lately, but she's staying or she's going. So you have to be very objective in the kind of promises we make. Very, very measured. And I wonder why Ghanaians want to believe an MP that says, I want to construct this and this for you. Is that the job of an MP? To be frank, my MP and campaigning that way, I won't vote for you. I will tell you, just stay within your lane, as they say, and do what you are supposed to do. So sometimes they promise it, they're not able to deliver. Now I've been listening to the new kind of argument that says that you should have paid school fees for your ward. Your ward is now going to school for free. So that amount of money is called savings. But I think ordinary Ghanaian, those of the people who have their children at the free SHS, some of them wouldn't be able to do that kind of analysis, or even because they already they didn't have that money to spend. They were going to borrow some way, somehow to spend. So by helping them, you have only taken away the repayment and not necessarily the physical cash in their hand. So how then do I say that you've now given me money to spend, so I should be comfortable? And that's the only argument I hear them say when it comes to whether people have monies in their pocket or not. I some of us also want to, no matter the situation, you have to manage. You can't run away. So either I have money or I call you and call you. I will still have to be able to live. Whether I'm drinking water or eating a gari with sugar, I have to survive. But then the politician and the Ghanaian, both of them should beware and know that the kind of promises that come. IMF will come and say the beautiful things, and she was in Ghana, some CSO people, leaders met. I couldn't go for those meetings. But then how do those things translate into people's pockets? We might be doing well, fine, but at the end of the day, people did not feel that. And even this Christmas period, you have people saying it, and they are not lying. They are telling us what they felt. And so I always say, when you're going to another election, the promises come, we provide A, B, C, D. Madam, say you should be careful what you are going out
Indeed.
for.
But you know, you talked about something which is a very worrying situation. 1998, fresh from GIG, you know, and then I got myself involved. I was pushed into contesting assembly election. So you know, when we go mounting these platforms, and then you have this potential assemblymen. We were about 15, you know. And then they'll come, and when you give me the mandate, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. I thought, wow. So then when I mount, I said, listen, these guys, I don't know where they are getting this from. Where you going? My supporters warned me that you can't go saying that this thing they are saying it, they don't have the mandate. I mean, they said, no, you should stop saying that thing. You know, and when we went to Soweto to go and mount this thing, they came barricaded before the electoral officer who called me. They came and said, next time, meaning if you go there and say that thing again, next time we won't even allow you to go and mount the platform.
Wow.
So this is the problem. We ourselves want to be deceived.
We are demanding lies.
We want to be deceived.
Wow.
So we have to change the way we do things. If we don't change, the politician is part of us. They are our brothers, our fathers, our aunties, our mothers. So it's a reflection of the way we do things. So sometimes, yes, you want to shift the burden of responsibility onto the politicians because they willingly put themselves in that position. But frankly, we have to start looking at the way we do things and start being sensible and reasonable about some of the expectations and demands.
Could you let me ask something before you go?
Sure.
And our case are learning. I had my firstborn going to contest for GSS. It was in GSS final year. Wanted to contest for the school prefect's position and did his manifesto. And the kind of things he was promising, I was like, Kobe, will you be able to deliver? Mommy, if you don't write it this way, don't vote for me. And I was shocked.
Yeah.
He's going to change the kind of meals they eat, going to give finance every lunchtime. I said, whose money?
I want to go to his school. Next enrollment, I'm going free SHS. Can you believe that? Now, we're also joined via Skype by Dr. Kobe Mensah. He's a lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. He's also a political marketer. Dr. Mensah, how nice to see you, and season's greetings.
Nice to see you, could you? I'm sure you can find out from my sacrifice.
Oh, that's all right. I can imagine the cold is not helping. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're still keen to hear what you have to say about how the year has gone. We're just on the topic of the economy and how government has succeeded or not succeeded in managing the economy, creating jobs, and so forth. I'd love your thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Kojo. I think that the market, there is the marketing that says that if you overpromise and you underdeliver, you tend to create a despondent customer. So certainly the government has been doing a lot of things. But because of the scale of the promise and the continuous failure of the political class, I think increasingly people are not seeing what the government has done because the promises were too many, just because politicians over the years failed to deliver on their promises. So certainly, it hasn't gone down well with as much as the government is. But of course, they have that.
Now, I mean, you've hit on the point of how they communicate, you know, and how that affects people's perception of whether they are doing well or not. And, Zachariah was making an important point about, the fact that the people actually want the politicians to lie to them. They want a lie, as a reason to vote. Do you find that to be the case, that without these lofty promises, they can't win power?
It is true. Actually, it's a condition. It is not necessarily the people want us to be liked. And over the years, we have been conditioned. That is how the politics or campaigning is. I mean, obviously, majority of us know that MPs are not supposed to vote because they are not developmental agents. And over the years, they have conditioned us to think that they can influence and bring projects to our elections or to our geographical area. And because of that, if the MP doesn't do that, and of course, an outlier. That's why that if you go out there, you're only an agent for legislation, then of course you cannot win it because the people are conditioned by that. So yes, not just that we like to, but it's because politicians have prepared us to think that way. That's why they have for us to believe it.
Right. Now, quickly, how do you think the president and the vice president have done by way of communication, in every single news item that has occurred this year, from double track to the banking crisis? We talked about the military, the U.S. military agreement earlier. To all the other things that have happened, from the CD, the depreciation of the CD, to all the different scandals, cash for seats, and all of these things. How do you think the president, first of all, and then the vice president, and perhaps even the ministers, have communicated when these issues have occurred?
Okay, I think the political class have failed that when they are communicating to opposition parties, but they can. I think they had always identified the audience. So you see that whenever they have opposition party and therefore using the word, they don't usually they communicate with parties as if they're only speaking to entities. But remember, you're speaking. So they tend to use when you were in government, this is what you did, and when I'm in government, this is what I'm doing. Now, if you shadow your opposition party, miscommunicate, and so there will be miscommunication. So I think that our class must understand that what they are speaking should be mindful into the average and to understand why certain things have been done or why things have been done. Explain it that way. I don't have opposition party in mind in order for you as well for you to compare. Because we are not interested in that. We are interested in your delivery. We're interested in what they did in passport to deliver. We're interested in what it left to deliver. So I think that the political much as of all understand who the audiences are, who we speaking to. They must be transparent. For so many years, the issues in Ghana are not transparent. They rather. We're not saying that we are able to deliver if you are interested. And if you are transparent, why you couldn't, then of course the people talk by that. If you look at President Kufuor, he's loved by people. Because even when he came, he realized that he couldn't number of ministers he probably when he was in the position, he was upfront with people. At single up President Kufuor to the current president. Now, if you look at the president, people love him for, So where's that bring sexuality in my dead body. After that, I've been able to translate with the people. This is the problem that we have.
Yeah, we were able to follow that, but only just because of the difficulty in the singing. But a very interesting point there, Dr. Kobi Mensah, making about you know, the political class and their communication style.
And you see, one of the things that they do, which I don't know whether they're doing it unconsciously or they're doing it deliberately, is that anytime, and as you mentioned it, Dr. Kobi Mensah just mentioned, anytime they are talking, they are trying to address very pertinent issues. They use 3 propaganda techniques pinpointing the enemy. Oh, so we are not the problem. It is the opposition that is the problem. And if it's the opposition that is speaking, we are not the problem. It is the government that is the problem. And then the other thing they do is that 2 of the lesser evils. It's a propaganda technique that frankly it's annoying people and is making people to resent political establishments. Because that is why the people decided to change the status quo. So when they change the status quo and they give you the opportunity, and then they are raising issues, or people are raising, when the media raises issue, or even when the opposition raises issue, it's not about whether it is the media or the opposition that is raising it. It's about the issue that is being raised. Is it an issue that is legitimate, that is fair, that is reasonable, and that is just to raise? If it is, deal with it. In dealing with it, yes, you could actually then talk about the fact that, yes, we are dealing with it, but we don't want to go back to what. But where you try to rather answer it by saying that, well, but you know, listen, this thing, it used to be like this, so they used to do it this way. And so if we have done this, you should be grateful. It was wrong. So when you are doing it, it's also wrong. And I think that thing is very annoying. And that is why there has been research that says that there is a backlash to democracy because of the way people find these things very offensive and very, very insensitive from the political class.
Interesting. Now, one of the other specific issues that have happened that I'd love to get your take on is the National Cathedral. So much conversation has been generated about that this year. It's something that we first heard of, you know, when the president announced it last year. But then this year we saw some movement towards its realization. We saw a plan, a design by you know, legendary Ghanaian architect David Ajay, I think his name is, from the UK. Beautiful, beautiful design. But then once the reality started to dawn, there was some criticism. First of all, I mean, individually, how do you both feel? Cathedral, good idea or not?
I wanted to address something in relation to government communication.
Oh, yes, yes.
So I can do that before I come to the
Of course.
issue. One thing that really worries me, when earlier on I spoke about governments don't change, is the people that change, has to do with the way and manner we use the Flagstaff House or the seat of government as a clearinghouse. For government officials that might have engaged in acts that are wrong, and when committees of inquiries are set up, and then they complete their job, we never get to know the findings or the outcome, but then we get presidents saying they've done nothing wrong. It happened in the previous administration. It has happened a couple of times in this current administration. And when Obama was in this country, I remember he said we should allow institutions to work. So if you set up a fact-finding commission and they finish their job, you can actually forward the reports, if you don't want to give it to the public, to one of these institutions of state, many of them. You have the Shroud, you have the police, whatever, for them to do proper and further investigations into the matter. Because you are supposed to be the executive, you are supposed to be the implementer. You cannot let your people or allow people who fall under the executive commit an offense. I wouldn't say they've committed any crime because I wouldn't know what the findings are. Alleged. And then fact-finding commissions finish, so you more or less become a judge in your own courts. You set up the whatever, you finish, you declare them, and they go scot-free, and they're walking around, and nothing else happens. Numerous allegations of corruption came up, and that is the result we had in previous administration, and that's why the governments don't change. And that is one of the areas if going into 2018, 2019, they will change, we'll be very, very happy about. That don't, especially you can do it in every other aspect, but not when it comes to anti-corruption. We are not happy with this at all, at all, at all.
The clearinghouse syndrome.
No, they have to stop. It's not good at all.
Interesting.
When it comes to the cathedral issue, I actually followed the dinner that was held recently.
Yes.
On.
Did you buy a table? Or?
No, I was not there. I was not invited. If I don't have $1,000 to to buy an MTN number. But the one I listened to, the reason and the idea behind it, being a Christian, I don't have anything against it. But for the fact that I am worrying about how our brothers on the other side will feel about a national cathedral that I think is looking at for Christians also. Yes, we have not actually been able to bring the other side on board. That's notwithstanding. The reason behind it, the vision of the president notwithstanding, it has to actually follow proper procedures, and all the questions that were asked about where it's going to be built and who you are going to move out, they are all very credible and important questions to be answered. And so, because I'm a Christian does not mean that I should allow it to be overlooked. And then we bring about the bits about if you do something for God, God will pay. We know all those ones. But then when it comes to using, now they're mobilizing resources, but I don't know what they're going to pay for the land that is going to be used as well. So whatever it is, government is going to commit something which is for the taxpayer into whatever is going to be done. So we need to ask the right questions, and we should not be seen as people who are not godly enough if we ask the right kind of questions. But I also want us to see what we can do for our brothers on the other side. It's national, but then with the Muslims involved in the planning, because the dinner, I didn't see the other side, but for the vice president who was there. Maybe I don't know what the people were there in their backgrounds, but I think it's a good idea. I'm a Christian, I believe in having a cathedral of this nature for the nation, but then all the proper governance issues should be answered.
Do you think that has been done? Do you think that
not enough, not well enough? Yeah.
Zachariah?
Well, Ghana is a secular country, and we have seen countries where that secularism hasn't been at the fore, and how religion being mixed with national issues had caused a lot of problems. And I am a Muslim, I am a practicing Muslim, and I am always concerned when government starts getting involved in religious affairs. Because when do you stop? Where do you stop? And issues about religion, because of the emotions and because of the way religion itself has become the way of life of people, sometimes you become unusually naive when issues of religion has been discussed, because you're worried that if you are asking what any reasonable person would ask, you would be seen to be either blasphemy. And then it cuts across all the religion, Islam and Christianity. So when religion is taking forefront in national affairs, it's a very, 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 very tricky road to go, because ultimately, once you're going down that route, then the religious leaders, the imams, the pastors would have to have a very, very, very profound role to play in there. They are not elected. Who do they account to? Who can hold them accountable? And yet when they speak, they want us to take it without any challenge. And that is my concern about some of these things. By all means, as a country, we can decide that this is what we want to go. But let's have an effective and efficient engagement. Let all the stakeholders say, this is what we want to do. But from the onset, if you look at the goalposts had been changed as to what informed the putting up of this cathedral. And this goes to the issue about the honesty and openness about what we want to do, you know, because this is a national asset. But if it's going to be a national asset, we should see that we have a lot of priorities. Sometimes, by all means, you realize that, well, ideally, I'm better off doing this. But for some reason, let's agree to do that. People would know that there are so many pressing issues. But for whatever it is, let's do this.
The president says it's a priority among priorities.
Priority among priorities from his perspective. Who did he talk to? Did we have any, if you like, any national consensus on this? No, it is an imposition. And to make matters a bit, if you like, worrying or even surprising, look at the angle that we've just been told. That it is in fulfillment of a pledge between you and your God, or if it is a fulfillment between you and your God, how does that then extend to all the whole 30 million Ghanaians? That plot of land, it's for all of us. Did we then make that decision? Is it the president who has taken his own money? Because God says if you want to do something, do it from your own resources.
The finance minister says government will provide seed money.
The seed money, why is the seed money? If you are going to fulfill some pledge between you and your God, it should be because, you see, God is not interested in our material things. You're not doing it for God. He doesn't need it for anything. It's the genuineness and the honesty which you're doing. You don't take from people who themselves are in need. Don't we have people who are sharing drinking water with animals in other areas? Don't we have people who can't even afford to pay for healthcare? Don't we have? But we've decided that this is the priority. That's fine. But let's have some honesty and openness in the way we do things. But you know what is happening in Iran? Where the ayatollahs, the religious people, become so powerful. When religious people become so powerful in a country, it is worse than politicians.
Wow. Well, we have about a minute and a half, so this is how I want us to wrap up. I had wanted us to talk about the media as well, but sadly, time won't permit it. So, expectations, aspirations for 2019, Linda?
Going into the election year in 2020, we shouldn't spend the whole of 2019 doing politics. It's actually, we would not get anything from it. We are supposed to be discussing very major issues. I'm still looking forward to the banking issue and how it is resolved. One way or the other, we are all affected. Some of us have monies in other affiliated savings and loans banks, and we are suffering because the banking crisis came up. And so we are hoping that that matter will be resolved, and many Ghanaians are hoping that it will be resolved as well.
The banking thing is a tragedy. It's a tragedy of unimaginable proportions, and we shouldn't have been here. It is a mixture of a number of things, and certainly the greed and selfishness of individuals plays a major role, because people have to ask reasonable questions. We're becoming so unusually naive when it comes to things, conveniently naive when it comes to certain things. I mean, like you said, you have to ask questions. You have to ask questions. But there are other issues that people have thrown out there that the authorities also have to share some responsibility. But I don't buy this idea that government should really absorb what has happened. I mean,
but should they not at least arrest
that is the point I'm coming to.
Who is now suspected to have,
that's the point I'm coming to. Somebody would have to lodge a complaint, then the government or through the police or something have to do the arrest and then let the procedure follow. But I don't think that government should really, when people were enjoying the booty, they didn't really call us to come and share. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I hope that this is the last time we're going to see this thing happen.
Did you feel the same about DKM?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people don't want to listen. I have had my students coming to me and saying they want to invest in some of these things. And I asked them, what's the percentage? And I said, really, do you think this makes sense? And then as soon as you start being a bit critical, they think you are an enemy of progress because they are going to make some money and you are asking these questions. So I told them, then why did you come to seek my opinion then? So sometimes we want to. That's why I said sometimes we want to be put into those situations. It's just that unfortunately government has to be the father figure, and sometimes, even when you have a child and the child had gone out of the line, it is not when they are in their lowest of low that you really hit them hard. You try to see what you can do. But I don't think that government should be blamed wholly for these things. We have to blame ourselves as well, and let's learn from this.
Well, fingers crossed for a much better 2019, and at least your February salary, dear, is mine. Thank you both so much for making the time to be with us. Zachariah Tanko is a lecturer at GIJ, he's also a lawyer, and Linda Ofori-Kwafo is chair of the board at the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and of course she is with Ghana Integrity Initiative. It's been a pleasure, both of you.